And good evening, everyone. Welcome back to WOR here for Tier 1 Round 5. It's been a long time since we've been back here. I think it's been 3 weeks since Round 4. And of course, as you all know, there was quite a few issues with attendance. So we've switched days, hence why you've seen us here on a Thursday rather than on a Sunday. So yes, we've made a few changes. We've got the attendance to be a little bit better than it has been in the past. And of course, that means we're going to have some even better racing here in the top flights of WOR PC. You might see on your screens there is no Dan Field. Unfortunately, Dan is ill this evening, so of course we send our best wishes over to Dan, and hopefully he'll be back next week. But jumping in the commentary box alongside myself tonight will be Mr. Joseph Black. Joseph, welcome in. I believe your first time here in WOR Tier 1. How are you doing?
It certainly is very excited to get started and to see what these drivers are going to be capable of. Of course, it's the pinnacle. So, yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what everybody is able to do around 29 laps of the Qatar circuit.
Indeed, and yes, as Joseph says, we are at Qatar this evening. We haven't got a full calendar at the moment. I presume there's one in the making, but all I know is that this round we're at Qatar and next week we're at the track that PSG is at. So if anybody does know, let us know in the live chats. As well, I believe Thomas Ronhage chose to start from the back as he is retired already, and we've only just got into Q1. But of course, before we go on to trackside action, the standings are looking very competitive at the top, but I'm sure that could change this evening. Of course, Nicolas Longuet leads by 49 points after just 3 rounds, taking a win in the opening 3. But a DNF back in Brazil due to a little bit of contact with Julian Klaffenbach. And well, he got a race ban for that, so I'm sure you could make of that with what you will. So yes, a big shame there for Nico. Won't be taking part this evening, but should be back for the next round next week. And then, of course, Shanika Clay, a really good start to the season, sits P2 on 26 points. And then, of course, our race winner from last time out, Tamas Gal, sits third on 25 points, both on 24. We have Julian Klaffenbach and Reese Linton, with Jarno Opmeer in P6. Of course, he is also here this evening. Then Ruben Pedreño in P7, ahead of Jan Halliday, Cameron Dowds, and then Lucas Blakely, rounding off the top 10 in the standings. And I've got to say, Joseph, there's been well, it's very close, isn't it, between P2 and P10, only 8 points separating them all. So for this race tonight in Qatar, there's a chance for anybody to try and jump up towards the top of the standings.
There certainly is, especially with Nicholas away this evening and Shanika Clay not racing as well. So it could provide the opportunity for not just those drivers in the top 10, but pretty much anybody to jump their way up to the top of the field. Shanika Clay, definition of consistency so far this season. He's podiumless, but he still finds himself in P2. And all those drivers were in behind with an opportunity to take that second place, close the gap to Longuet, and maybe kick off their season.
Certainly, and of course we'll give you a quick run through of who's actually taking part here this evening. So, of course, as you might see, at the moment everybody is in the multiplayer car. That's because of the issues with the inequality of them. So everybody goes in the same car for the qualifying. Then in the race, where it doesn't matter as much with the equality of the cars, everybody goes back into the normal cars. So like the Red Bull, McLaren, etc. But yes, tonight we have in the McLarens, Xander Van Dijken and Jake Benham making his first appearance this season. Then in Ferrari, we have Angelo D'Ortenzio, one of our reserves. He's alongside Ismail Fassi. Red Bull, we have the Dream Team, Jarno Opmeer and Frederick Rasmussen. Mercedes, it is Riccardo Benzoni, of course, part of the Ferrari team. He's alongside Joni Tormula. Aston Martin, it's Duncan Hoffland alongside Jan Halliday. Then Alpine, we have Otis Lawrence and Josh Edu. Haas, it's Joris Krozen and Jack West. Racing Bulls, it's Fabrizio Donoso and Tamas Gal. And then Williams, we have Tygo Hardy and Philip Preschneider. And then finally, we have Thomas Ronhart and Julian Klaffenbach in the kick. And, of course, that's going to be, I think the two teams here to watch tonight, Joseph, is Red Bull and Kick, because they have two very good lineups.
They certainly do, and the teamwork element could be absolutely vital in this evening's action, especially with the field so close together. I think we could be seeing, for example, the likes of Klaffenbach and Ronhart work together, give each other slipstream, DRS, all those strategies just to allow each other to go forward. And, well, it can be echoed throughout the field as well. But all those drivers that potentially reserves, they'll get the chance as well to, well, demonstrate what they're capable of, try and advertise themselves for a full-time seat.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, one man to talk about around this circuit is Otis Lawrence, for 2 reasons. Firstly, we're going to talk about the good news about Otis around here. Of course, he took the win back in Season 18, took P3 back in season 16, but of course, as we might all remember, back in season 15, it was the host of a controversial moment between himself and Ismail Fassi. If you know about that, well done, you know what I'm on about. But if you don't, I'm not going to explain it. We're going to keep all of the negativity out of the limelight here this evening. But Otis certainly a driver to watch around this track. And then also we do have as well Fabrizio Donoso out on circuit. I think it might be his first appearance as well this season. Of course, has been part of the Ferrari team, Aston Martin team, and I think many others back in the past. Has been here a very long time, so definitely expecting to see some good things from him. But of course, once we get to around that 10-minute mark, Joseph, we should see a few more cars actually head out on the soft tyre. Of course, at this point, we just have to sit here and wait for a bit of action.
Yeah, we do at the moment. These drivers are just sort of trying to work out the circuit, see what their lines should be, all these sorts of things, see what the conditions are. And of course, while those first laps are going to be important to get the bankers on the board, it's the end of this session where they're really going to be desperate to set those proper laps. It's full qualifying this evening, so this is just the chance to get yourself bedded in, get yourself ready for the next few qualifying sessions, and hopefully qualify yourself through. Of course, that's going to be the aim. And well, Fabrizio Donoso and Otis Lawrence came out. They went on the Inters. They had a little bit of a sighter at the circuit, and I don't think that's going to harm them too much because I don't think there's going to be much rain here tonight.
No. If there was rain, I'd probably say it was a glitch rather than the probability of it being real. I don't think it ever rains here in Qatar. I think the last time it rained in the Middle East was due to cloud seeding, and I don't think that's actually a feature in F125. Yeah, if it was, I suppose we might see some tonight, but highly doubt it. Indeed, of course, a big welcome to everybody over in the YouTube chat. Of course, it has been a bit of a while since we've been here for PCT1, but it is great to be back once again and having a lot more of a competitive lineup here for the teams and the drivers tonight, as Fabrizio's car does get wheeled back into the pit lane. And then, of course, shortly we should see a few cars heading out onto track to get their first lap times on the board. But of course, Joseph, you're an engineer in the F125 scene, so I'm going to put you on the spot. What strategy would you be looking at right now if you're going into the race?
Well, to be perfectly honest, there's not much running that I've seen around Qatar, at least. But I think a lot of drivers tonight will be attempting hard mediums. I really do think that that's a potential strategy they'll be going on to, simply because it's just it makes sense to go long around this circuit. It makes sense to try and, well, maybe get the slower tyre out of the way, but overcut tends to be very strong around Qatar.
It certainly does. And of course, I think the undercut as well can work quite good. It depends what sort of pace you've got. I mean, if you've got some poor pace and you're at the back, go for an undercut. Try something a little bit different. But if you're at the front, you can either go for the undercut or maybe risk that overcut. We've seen it work in the past, even at times where drivers have thought, you know what, this isn't going to work, but we'll go for it. And in the end, they do come off with some really good results. So I think strategy will be key around this circuit due to the fact you can't overtake. I mean, you can't overtake on this game, never mind on a track where it's just difficult anyway. Of course, it's a MotoGP track, not an F1 car track, so it will certainly be interesting tonight in terms of the race strategy. But of course, they've had some experience in PSGL yesterday. I didn't watch the race, if I'm truly honest. I was quite busy, but I heard it was a good one. And of course, drivers will be looking at strategies that were good and bad there, and they'll be applying that theory here tonight. So it's a little bit less of an unknown than it would be if it was just no practice, boom, straight into Qatar.
Of course, they've got the data in the smaller leagues to build up for the big league and to build up for PC Tier 1. So they've got the opportunity tonight to really demonstrate what they've been able to do. Some of them might have had a gamble strategy yesterday just to have a sighter out, because there hasn't been much action around Qatar at all on this year's game in terms of the racing action. They enjoy a lot of time trial. It is one of the drivers' favourite circuits in terms of just driving around it. Overtaking opportunities are limited, but mistakes generally, you see them a bit more at this circuit than any other, as we have got our first cars coming out for their first real runs.
We certainly have. The first car out will be Duncan Hoffland, of course, part of the Aston Martin team, drove last season in esports on many, many occasions, and has been here in WOR for a very long time. And I think he's took a win in the past. He's took a few podiums, so I'm hoping that we can see more of that from Duncan this evening. Of course, heads onto track. Tamas Gall as well on circuit. Joris Krozen, Otis Lawrence, Josh Edu. You know, many of our big drivers here tonight. So, I mean, looking at, well, I'll put you on the spot again, Joseph. One driver and one driver only. Who would you be looking at tonight?
I think, well, you mentioned the prowess that Otis Lawrence has around this circuit, and I really think that he is definitely one to look out for. But, I mean, of course, Jarno Opmeer is Jarno Opmeer. Everybody in the chat will be screaming at me right now about that. But there is a few drivers up there who could really state their claim. I think Otis would be the favourite. Tamas Gal winning last time out as well. He'll be high on confidence, and maybe he could take another one this evening.
Yeah, certainly. I think lots of drivers here have the opportunities to win. I mean, Freddie Rasmussen, a driver that we see quite a lot, and in PSGL and WOR, he's always a bit of an unknown. You never know what to expect from Freddie. He could turn up and do brilliant, but otherwise he could just turn up and be like, right, I'm just going to do the race. I'm not bothered about where I finish. But then when he turns up to esports, he's an absolute animal. Always is. So I think Freddie as well, another driver to kind of watch out for tonight. He's took many wins in league racing on this game so far. So yet again, could be another opportunity for him to try and score some decent points. But the first car to go out for a lap will be Duncan Hoffland. So we'll go on board with the Aston Martin driver down towards turn 1 here around this Qatar circuit, the Lusail International Circuit indeed. Into turn 1, of course, you want to brake late, get the car turned into the apex, down to 4th gear, then back through the gears, through and towards turns 2 and 3. Of course, once again, using as much of the track as humanly possible without going over that white line. Then, of course, a short bit of a straight into turns 4 and 5, the double right-handers. Yet again, you've got to be so careful not to invalidate through this section of the track, and then down into turn 6. Lights on the brakes, get the car turned into the left, a bit of a flick if you need to get the car turned in, and then back on the power once again. In towards turn 7 we go. Oh, and I've disconnected from the host. Brilliant.
As have I, so that's not necessarily issue. The way we'd... Yeah, which is unfortunate, and it might take us a little bit longer. Of course, that was just about to be the first runs, and well, I think we're going to be starting once again from minute 1 if we've all disconnected.
Indeed, but nobody seems to be messaging in the chat at the moment, and you got kicked as well, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, that is really odd. Well, I'll try and get back in. Oh, Josh and Otis lost connection as well, so everybody, unfortunately, lost connection there, and for some reason I've been selected to go into the fan zone. Let's pick Aston Martin and Max Verstappen. There we go. Dear me, right, we'll bring ourselves back to the commentary camp quickly. There we go. Oh, dear me, well, interesting start. And, oh, my game is glitched. I'm stuck on that page. Right, it's fixed.
It's a way of building up the tension. It's a way of just, you know, we've had to wait 3 weeks. Why not wait a few more minutes to get our PC Tier 1 action underway?
Indeed, and we've been told that there is a chance of doing short qualifying rather than the full session because nobody can be bothered to set everything back up and go once again for a full quali. So hopefully we'll just be a short qualifying here. And apparently full qualifying is bugged at Qatar. That's what we've been told. So if that's the case, that certainly makes it not ideal to try and run full qualifying once again. As so guys, we are going to go for a short qualifying, it seems. And yes, and we'll get back underway. But of course, Joseph, you haven't done any commentary here in Tier 1. You have done, though, in Tier 2 on multiple occasions. What do you think we'll expect from these Tier 1 drivers compared to the Tier 2 drivers?
I think there's going to be an initial pace boost for the Tier 1 drivers, but I think some of those Tier 2 drivers are going to be able to bring themselves up to pace. A lot of them who are reserving here tonight are, a lot of them who've reserved across the season have been able to get up to speed pretty quickly. Of course, we scored Cameron Dowd in the top 10 of those standings, and Jan Halliday, I think, is another one who, wherever he races, he seems to be at least near the pace.
Yeah, certainly. I think Jan's, one of those. He's been here for such a long time, and even if he doesn't have the full pace, he's always got an idea or a way around that and can still score some good points. And Jason says, you think Tier 1 is going to be faster than Tier 2? Well, yes, of course, but there is definitely Tier 2 drivers that are quicker than some of the Tier 1 drivers. We've seen that in the past on many, many occasions. I think Luca Rapassa and Leo Lund being 2 examples, along with Angelo D'Ortenzio as well. Drivers that aren't necessarily Tier 1, but they're on, they're quicker than some of them. Their pace is really good on their day. As Jan has got the lobby back open, so we should be able to join and get back involved. But while we have some time, we're going to have a quick look at the previous results from last time out. Of course, it was Tamas Gal, after so long of hunting for a win, finally got one back in Brazil, and he finished just ahead of his teammates on that evening, Reese Linton. Then, big gap back to third, Ismail Fassi on the podium ahead of Shanika Clay, who was also so close to a podium himself. Then we had the Williams driver of Ruben Pedreño, top 5. Great to see him up the top of things, ahead of Jarno Opmeer. Disappointing result in P6, ahead of Duncan Hofland, and then 3 reserves, Xander Van Dijken, Philip Prejneder, and Sergio Sobrino. But I believe Xander has been promoted to a full-time driver for the McLaren team.
Yeah, and it's a great opportunity for himself to just, again, to see what he can do. I mean, these drivers, they will advertise themselves as much as they can. Of course, there's a couple who have made their debuts as Tier 2 drivers and have actually done well enough to warrant themselves a Tier 1 spot. And so for those who are not necessarily full-time drivers, it is a great chance to see what they can do. Qatar as well, free-flowing track. It's very fun to drive. So not only will they get the chance to show themselves off, see how high they can get, they'll have a bit of fun while they do it.
Certainly, and we have got everybody in. We have got the short qualifying, as Lucas said in the chat. And also a good evening to Dan Field. Of course, Dan would have been here alongside me this evening, but unfortunately fell ill. So hopefully we hope Dan rests well and can get back into the commentary box very, very soon. Of course, next week we will be at, I'll find it in a second, Texas. So that will be Qatar on October the 2nd. So that should be a really good race. And being as we have got some filler time, what are your thoughts on the Qatar circuit? Because I think, Joseph, it's one of the most underrated.
I very much do. I think it is hated on for no real reason. I mean, Herman Tilke quite literally designed the circuit based on his favourite parts of other F1 circuits. So it's got the formula to be a great one. And I think it's been executed. I think it's very underrated. Yep,
I agree. And we have got 18 drivers in, so we're getting there, guys. We're getting closer. So please don't leave us just yet. Of course, if you have only just joined us, a good evening to you all. Of course, we're back here for WOR PCT when we have moved to Thursdays due to some attendance issues. So, we can have some more of our full-time drivers back with us. Sundays just doesn't seem to be their day on F125, unfortunately. So, yes, we have moved it. And also, we will be following on from the PSGL calendar, which takes place on Wednesdays, just so the drivers don't have to practice 2 tracks in 2 days. It makes it a little bit easier for them, especially with tracks that they will expect to see on the F1 sim racing calendar, which I'm hoping starts at some point. Last year it was November it was announced fully, I think, or I think it might have been December, I'm not sure. Hopefully it gets announced soon as well, because I think we're all waiting to see what's going to happen with F1 sim racing this year, and I'm sure many drivers on this grid tonight will be taking part in F1 sim racing on the upcoming season, as we are still waiting on 2 drivers. Oh, is it? Oh no, I need to invite Jarno, that's why. Every time I need to invite him. I don't know why I don't get anyone else to do it. I'm sure surely people from his team are on his friends list, but no, I've invited him, so he should be able to get in. Donoso's in as well, so then I think we are just waiting on Jarno, and then we can get into the lobby. Yes. Are you? You are on spectator. Because last time, or one time at least, into WOR Tier 1, I accidentally went in as a driver.
Been there, done that. I mean, I think that's the number one mistake any commentator makes on this game is to go into the drive mode. I think I've only ever done it once, but once was enough.
Yeah. No, I remember the time I actually ended up going into the race, and that was back on F122, and I did end up going into the race. I decided to dive bomb everybody at turn 1 and kill them all, just so they knew we had to restart. And someone actually got angry. They thought someone literally just dive bombed turn 1 on purpose. Originally, at least.
What? You say that. That's just actually how you drove. You just outbraked everyone into turn 1.
Yes, so I used whatever car it was as a brake into turn 1, and I come out of it in 3rd, but I did have a very damaged front wing, so it wouldn't have lasted that long. But we have our drivers readying up. Finally, we can head into the qualifying session once again. We'll put ourselves back to the race screen, and well, let's see what cooks up this time, and if we actually can get some laps underway. I don't think we had a single soft tyre run in the last one.
No, we were about to start them. I think Jake Benham literally came around the first corner, came around to the first corner, and that was it for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see what the drivers are capable of. Of course, shorter qualifying than we would have been predicting originally.
Yeah.
But it's going to change the dynamics a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly will. I mean, I think grip's probably different in short quali. I'd imagine so. I'm not an expert when it comes to knowing the grip in qualifying sessions, but I'm sure there is a different level of grip in short qualifying, and also it means that there's less chances for drivers to get pole and to kind of build their way up to a good lap. Of course, if you've got 3 qualifying sessions and you can make it to Q3, you've had how many laps to get yourself prepared, get yourself ready for that one final run for pole position. But in this session, you've got 3, maybe 4 runs max, depending on your strategy. So, yeah, there's not as much chances for the drivers. But we're back on track here. Thomas Ronhard once again has retired from the session as he wants to start at the back. And yes, we'll see what continues on. Of course, I hope they all go in softs this time. I really hope they don't go out on inters.
I don't think they will. I think that we will be seeing.
Thank the Lord.
I think we'll see everybody out in soft runs. I also think as well that they're going to be attacking this qualifying session a bit more, and I think we will be seeing 4 runs, if not 3, from all of the drivers, simply because softs absolutely useless in race spec around here, so they may as well use them up while they've got them.
Yeah, certainly. I don't think softs are good in the race all around Qatar. And I think we'll have a restart, so I don't think it matters anyway what sort of strategy you go for in terms of your qualifying laps. I think it just, get as many laps as you can in. Of course, choose the softer allocation, so you get the 4 soft tyres rather than the 3, as we have got cars out on track. The first one will be Jan Halliday for the Aston Martin team. Of course, as I said earlier on, Jan has been around for a very long time, always manages to find some points on the board, even if things are looking difficult. So I'm sure, Joseph, he's going to have a good evening of racing tonight.
He certainly will. I mean, I think that he'll be aiming for points at the very least, which is a high expectation for somebody driving up. But I think, he'll be trying to go for at least the top 10. Of course, some of these drivers will be going for different strategies. I mean, Thomas Runhar last to first is certainly a strategy. Interesting to see. I mean, Freddie Rasmussen is going to try his runs, so he is going to take this one seriously. He's going to try and qualify properly, and he's only got 16 minutes as opposed to the 3 qualifying sessions to do so. So he needs to get up to the pace quickly.
He certainly does. Of course, Frederick Rasmussen in that normal pink, brown and yellow car that he drives when we're on the multiplayer cars. He did the same in 23 and in F1 24. Always with the brown liveried car. And is Johnny copying his car? Oh, he is, but I think it's just a slightly different sort of paint job. There's no yellow on Johnny's car, but we have got laps underway. Let's have a look at Riccardo Benzoni heading down towards turn 1, of course. Part of the Ferrari team as a development driver. He's technically in Mercedes this evening, so once we go into the main race, he will be in a Mercedes car, and we'll see what he can do on this opening qualifying lap. Making his way through the first couple of corners. Looking decent so far for Riccardo Benzoni. And then, of course, turn 4 and 5 away. Let's get the car turned in quickly, as you don't want to try and cut the inside too much. Of course, that will give you an invalidation, but you don't want to run too wide. In towards turn 6, we go onto the brakes, flick the car in. Of course, use all the grip that you can through there. Then a short straight in towards turn 7. Once again, get the car turned in nicely. Get on the delayed pedal as quickly as possible. Through in towards 8 and 9, then in towards turn 10. And then, of course, Josie, if you've got sector 3, which 3 corners of this sector, like, it doesn't even matter. You literally go flat through them all.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a very interesting final sector for that reason, and it's how gutsy can you be, essentially, in through the final few corners. Maybe one as well that is almost a lift as, Riccardo Benzoni is going to get through nice and cleanly. Those drivers that were in the way got out of the way pretty quickly, and it'll be the final corner then. That beckons for the Mercedes this evening. Jan Halliday up to the top with the 1:19.9. That's going to be the first lap on the board. Riccardo Benzoni the 1:19.8, and that's going to be the time that is going to be the benchmark that's already taken off him. It's Ferrari development driver to Ferrari development driver. Angelo D'Ortenzio finds time, and Josh Ido finds even more time. He's a 10th ahead of Benzoni, 600th ahead of D'Ortenzio, and he is the quickest so far.
Indeed, a nice lap from Josh Ido. What can Otis Lawrence do? Up to the line. Goes quickest, the 19.654 there for the Welsh driver. Of course, part of the Alpine team, not Aston Martin. He was there last season. Now part of Alpine. Of course, his teammate, Josh Ido, in P2 currently. Looking for somebody on a lap. We have got Jake Benham in his burgundy and blue car heading out of turn 6. And I just realised that is the worst colour combination in history. That's the Aston Villa colours. So I don't like you anymore, Jake. I hate you. But he continues on in towards turn 9 and 10. And of course where we will conclude Sector 2. As he makes his way through. Nice job so far by Jake. And then of course up towards turns 12, 13 and 14. Very nice indeed. Through there, through into the second one, and then of course through into the third one. And I mean, it's weird because you can go so flat through there, but because of the position you've got to take and you've got to extend the track as much as possible, we actually do see drivers invalidating through that section.
Yeah, and we saw one driver for Fabrizio Donoso invalidate on his first run. Jake Benham getting very squirrely out of the final corner. He is going to go on to set a lap, and it is going to be valid, but it's going to be the slowest of all, 20.044, and he is down at the back of the field by 0.04 of a second, lower than everybody else, as Donoso invalidated once again on his lap. Ismail Fassi is into the final sector, and he's got a 52 in the first two sectors. Not a bad time then for him to kick off with, as everybody is diving into the pit lanes at the end of their first runs. Fassi then around the final couple of corners. He will come and he's going to try and beat Lawrence's 1:19.654 power down, and it will be up to the line for Ismail Fassi with a 1:19.719. It's the front row, but it's not quite toppling Otis Lawrence.
Indeed, as a few more drivers now are heading their way through into the final couple of corners. I'm on board here with Joris Krozen. Ooh, a bit of a snap, and unfortunately that's an invalidation for him as we continue our way through. And of course no lap time set for Joris. What about Philip Presnader? Also an invalidation through turn 15. We've got Joni Tormler heading down to the end of sector 1. So he goes purple through there, but of course I'll guarantee that probably isn't purple. It just is purple for him. Zan van Dijken has also found an invalidation. Freddie Rasmussen heading through sector 1 currently, and I've got to say, surprisingly, we're seeing so many drivers out of sync of each other. Very, very confusing for all these run plans here. Normally, in a full quali, you have everybody go out at the same time and everybody come back in at the same time.
Yeah, they would have prepared for the full qualifying. So the short qualifying is going to short circuit them a little bit, and those who are actually doing tier 2, this is going to benefit them because they sort of know how that sort of thing works. Yeah. And well, we'll see those drivers, I think, go out at the appropriate times. Everybody else is kind of guessing as they go along, as Jarno Ottmer has gone a little bit quicker than Ismail Fassi in the first two sectors, and I think he could be going on to at least a front row if he's able to hook up this final sector here.
Certainly, as up to the line goes Joni Tormler, goes 5th fastest. Oh, and I think Zan van Dijken there might have got blocked by a car in the black livery. So that could have been Fabrizio Donoso or Josh Eder. Jean Otmé goes 3rd as Freddie Rasmussen goes quickest. A 1:19.581 there for Freddie Rasmussen. Goes right to the top of the timings by just over half a tenth to Otis Lawrence. Joris Krozen looks like he might be going again. No, goes back into the pit lane. Then we have in 15th, Zan van Dijken. Of course, yet again, another invalidation for him as he makes his way through to the end of Sector 2. So he won't be setting another lap time here at all. So we have a few drivers on an out lap. We have Jan Halliday, which has just begun a lap down towards turn 1. Currently P10, around 3/10 off of pole position. Let's see what he can do as he makes his way through the first couple of corners. I think he's lifted off already.
Well, it was the first driver out on circuit, so it's not a surprise that he's got a 19.9. But yeah, potentially he's lifted off, and we'll see when he gets past the split time. But it could be the potential that he's decided to do 2 laps on this run, and he is actually improving in that first sector by 600 to the second. So, well, Jan is just, he's kind of pushing, I think, at this point. He could be potentially just waiting for the second lap, which is where he's really going to get his lap underway. He can test through a couple of the corners that he might have been struggling with, and maybe that was the first. That was the first sector for him, but up to the line in the second sector, this is where we'll really see whether the Aston Martin is trying to improve on his lap time, and if he isn't, he's going to be setting himself up once again. No, he is, but he is down in that second sector by 0.02 of a second on his previous time. Now, Jan Halliday pushing through the final sector. He needs to find 3/10 though if he wants to be competitive for that pole.
Certainly does. In towards the final corner for Jan Halliday. Let's see what the Aston Martin driver can do. Through the final corner, a bit of a slide, and decides to bail it into the pit lane. Next we will have, I'm trying to find who's actually next to cross the line. It could be Josh Edo here. Currently in P5, only 0.2 off of pole position. We'll see what he can set on the board. Through sector 2, is he up on his time? No, he's down by just over half a tenth. So no improvement for him. What about Angelo D'Ortenzio making his way through in towards the final sector? Now we'll see what he can put onto the board. Currently P8 here in this session, just ahead of Riccardo Benzoni, who sits P9. Oh, and that was a snap and a half there for Angelo D'Ortenzio. Not going to be too happy with that as he heads through in towards the final couple of corners and will decide to go back into the pits. No lap time set for Angelo D'Ortenzio, and it seems quite common here, Joseph, that nobody's setting these second laps at all.
No, they're trying, but I think they're just pushing a little bit too far over the limit. The first laps, maybe they held back a little bit. Second laps, maybe they pushed a little bit too hard. So the final lap, they're going to hope is going to be a sweet spot. That is if they have just the one more run. There is just about enough time for two, and that's if you're quick. And a lot of the drivers are actually deciding to go for those second laps. Lawrence, Fassi, Hoffland, Benham, Klaffenbach, Gal, Crozen and Presnader currently on those next laps, and they will, I think, be able to squeeze their fourth run in.
Indeed, and a nice start here from Tycho Hardy. P9 currently, of course, will be able to find lots of time on that lap, I would imagine, as he makes his way through sector 2. It seems that the double 8 lap is quite a popular format here for these drivers. Of course, rather than going for just 1 8 lap, they go for 2, burn off a bit more fuel, and then, of course, just try and extract a little bit more time on their laps, as we do see Duncan Hoffland heading into turn 1. I think he might be on an actual lap here, burning the battery out of the first corner through and towards turn 2 and turn number 3. We'll see what he can manage to muster up on this lap. Currently P6, around 2/10 off pole position. And of course, still with another run after this one, can certainly try and make his way up into that top 5, and probably quite comfortably, as he heads down towards turn number 6. Get the car turned in nicely, of course, just using that apex on the inside to pull the car around, and then back on the power in towards turn 7. Of course, get the car turned in through here, back on the power once more through in towards 8 and 9. And this is looking decent here for Duncan Hoffland. Of course, would love to try and get up near the top of things here. Needs to find a couple of tenths, so if he wants to try and go for that provisional pole position, let's see what his sector 2 is looking like. He's up by a tenth and a half. This at the moment is good enough to jump up into second place and take that provisional front row spot away from Otis Lawrence. Through in towards the final corners goes Duncan Hoffland, Joseph. Let's see what he can manage to do on this next lap.
We'll see Otis Lawrence improved, and he's actually just the 4,000th behind Freddie Rasmussen on that provisional pole. Freddie now out on his outlap. Duncan Hoffland up to the line. Is he going to be able to snatch off the front row? Not quite. He would have been able to had Otis Lawrence not set that latest time, but he did indeed. And Duncan will be looking at that one and going, oh, what more do I need to do? He's only 200th off of Lawrence and, well, even 200th off Freddie Rasmussen with how close that the field is as it stands. But Ishmael Fassi is in the final sector. He's improving as well, and he's going to need to find a little bit more time in his final sector if he wants to catch up to Rasmussen and Lawrence, but it's definitely not impossible that the Ferrari driver will be able to challenge for the pole, and it's going to be a 1:19.601. So the top 4 in this field split by 0.022. This is going to be incredibly tight.
It certainly will be. Next to go, well, one of the next drivers to cross the line will be Arno Ottmere. P5 currently as Julian Klaffenbach goes P6 for the Kick Sauber team, as Tamas Gal slots himself into P7 as well. Let's see, what can Jarno do into the final corner here for the Flying Dutchman. P5 currently. We'll be looking to find some more time on that lap as Jake Benham goes 9th fastest, and it will be Rasmussen and Tormund. Oh, no, so Tormund has gone fastest, but because he matched times with Fredrik Rasmussen, it's going to be P1 for Freddie, P2 for Jonny. So that's interesting indeed, but it might not matter because Freddie has found a 10th and a half in Sector 2. So this could be another improvement here for Freddie and try and go into the .4s, potentially a bit wide out of the final corner. What can Freddie put onto the board? Up to the line, it's a 19.469. Goes back up to provisional pole by a good 10th and a little bit of a second here. Brilliant lap there by Freddie Rasmussen.
Incredible under all that pressure. Joni Tormala made his way up to the front row and, setting exactly the same time as Rasmussen. He would have been happy with the lap, but in the end, I think he would have been a little bit disappointed just because he was able to set exactly the same time as Rasmussen. He's got to do it all again in the final runs. Josh Edo is in the final sector, but he has just run slightly wide out of the penultimate corner, and he invalidates on the lap, so it's not going to be an improvement from 10th position. Angelo D'Ortenzio heads around the final corner. He invalidates too, this time in the final corner, so it was in the first few runs the second sector that caused the problems for the drivers. The third sector is causing problems for more of them, and that's going to be Joris Kroes with a 5-place grid penalty.
Yeah, that will be removed once we have the restart. Of course, we do sometimes get those silly penalties. Unfortunately, they went quite well in 24. There was all 24, 23. They happened all the time, but this game they've been quite light. We don't often get these 5-place grid penalties, but That just means that if we didn't have to have a restart, we definitely do, but we was going to have one either way. So, of course, we'll have a restart after this qualifying session. And, of course, a quick reminder to everyone in the chat. Normally, yes, we do run a full quali, but due to a glitch earlier on, we have chosen to go for a short qualifying session, just so we can eliminate those issues even more. So, of course, after this session has ended, we'll have our restart, and then we'll head through into the Grand Prix. As Tycho Hardy also joins Joni Tormela in the pit lane. Currently sits P14. Definitely quite disappointing here for Tycho. But I've got to say, one thing I've noticed so far, Joseph, is that there's so many drivers getting those lap time invalidations, and that is not good, especially when you head into a race where 3 warnings is a 3-second time penalty.
Well, I can't really understand why Tycho Hardy's coming to the pit lane. He didn't invalidate. He was up by a 1/10.5, and I guess he's setting himself up for the final run. But, I mean, that does promise for the man in 14th place at the moment. I think a lot of these drivers have a lot of promise on these laps. And so it's as you say, it's all about trying to keep it on the circuit for all of these drivers. And I think when they get to the race session, they're going to push just that little bit less. It's going to be slightly slower lap times, at least initially, while they get themselves under the door and get themselves just staying valid. But while they push completely flat out at the start, you're going to get those invalidations, you're going to get those mistakes, and that's what the first few runs in qualifying is really for. That's why they like having that Q1 session, so they have the possibility to make the mistakes. Into just one qualifying session, though, it makes it a whole lot harder.
It certainly does. When you've got one run left to go, especially when you're the likes of Jack West and Fabrizio Donoso, who haven't got good laps on the board, and for Fabrizio, got no lap on the board, you really don't want to be in a position now where you've got one chance to just, try and get ahead of 19th. Whereas if you're Freddie, Yanni, Otis, you've got a little bit of a buffer. You don't have to worry too much about all those at the back of the field getting past your time, because a lot of the time, if you're in the top 3 before the end of the session, you're not really going to drop down that far if you can't find any improvements. As the first car, though, to go on a lap will be Philip Prejnader. The lap times here are 1:19, so I don't think he's going to make the line in time. So if he does make a mistake here, that's his qualifying done, and that is the same for every driver here at the moment. They won't cross the line with enough time to go again. So this is everybody's last chance to try and take pole position away.
Yes, Philip Prejnader around the final corner then to start his final run. And, well, he's in the mid-pack at the moment, and I feel like there's potential to move up. I mean, he has to find 3.5 tenths if he wants to catch up to the pole position, but top 10 would be a great result for him. And around the first corner then, he's going to follow. You can see the line appearing of where all the drivers will go, and it's a good indication of where you need to go racing line-wise. But, of course, they will all have practiced this circuit. They'll all know exactly where they need to be. And Philip Prejnader trying to push all of the limits, as are all of the drivers on this circuit. What is it going to be in this first sector? It is going to be improving by 0.03 of a second, and well, they're all going to come up to the lines in a second, so we'll start to get an indication of their pace.
Yeah, certainly great opening sector here for Philip Prejnader. Of course, 2 sectors to go in this session, and of course the same for everybody, all heading through that final corner now. A few cars might even get caught up a little bit through into the final corner, but I think they should all cross the line just about in time. The final driver that will start a lap will be Arno Opmeer. But yes, he will cross the line with 6 seconds to go. So will be enough for Arno to complete a lap. But of course, this is the final laps for everybody to try and take that pole position away. Philip Prejnader looking to go into the final corner now, looking to try and get into the top 10 for the McLaren team as he makes his way out of the final corner now, up towards the line. What will it be for Philip Prejnader? Goes into 9th place, a good lap from him. Then I've got to find who's next to cross the line. And we're going to have to scroll through everybody, as it will be Xander Van Dijken only manages 16th place. Jack West goes into P15. We'll stick on board with Tycho Hardy, as Duncan Hoffland can't find an improvement on his lap, as we still have a few more cars to go up to the line. Tamas Gal stays in P8. Klaffenbach matches the time of Duncan Hoffland, but stays down in 7th place, as we see Jan Halliday jump up into the top 10. Josh Ido goes onto the front row. Tycho Hardy manages 13th and 13th only. Let's go on board here with Joni Tormela as we make our way through into the final couple of corners. Is anybody going to try and take that pole away? Freddie improves once again. Otis Lawrence goes onto the front row in 2nd place. Let's see, what can Tormela do? He's been strong in this qualifying session so far. As Dortenzio goes into 9th place, he will go into the top 10. Ismail Fassi goes 5th. It's Donoso into 5th place. No improvement from, I think it was Joni Tormula there, but Jarno Opmeer goes into 4th place at the end of things. There we have it. So it will be Freddie Rasmussen on pole position ahead of Otis Lawrence and his teammate Josh Edo in 3rd.
Yeah, very good for Alpine there. They've got 2 in the top 3, and Red Bull also have 2 in the top 4. Jarno Opmeer in 4th place. Ismail Fassi will take 5th, exactly a 10th off of the pole position. Fabrizio Donoso with his one and only lap will take 6th place. Joni Tormula in the end, after that strong pace, only gets 7th, and Hofland, Klaffenbach and Angelo D'Ortenzio they'll technically round out the top 10. Joris Krozen he'll pick up a 5-place grid penalty, which will drop him from 12th to 17th, but of course we're going to get that one removed. He will start from 12th place alongside Jan Halliday. Then to round out the field, it's going to be Tamas Gal, Philip Presneder, Jake Benham, Tico Hardy, Riccardo Benzoni, Sander Van Dijk and Jack West, and then Thomas Ronhaar, who did not set a lap time. But those are your 20 drivers that are going to contest the 29 laps around Qatar. And, we're in for a cracker, I think.
We certainly are, and we are just going to have our restart. So we're going to have a quick word from our sponsors over at Next Level Racing and Grid Finder. So we'll be back with you very, very shortly. And we are back. Welcome back, everybody. Of course, a big thanks to Next Level Racing and Grid Finder for being the sponsors for this season of WOR PC Tier 1. Right, so, stand-ins, as we looked at them earlier on. Nicholas Longate has had a bit of a brawl at the start of this season. In the first 3 rounds in terms of getting wins, then in round 4, literally having a brawl with Julian Klaffenbach, and unfortunately earning himself a race ban for the Australian, but I think he's got a qualifying ban to serve after as well. I can't remember fully on his penalty points. So, yeah, even though he's leading the championship, he's certainly going to come under a little bit of pressure heading into round 6. Of course, Shanika Clay has been really positive this season, sits P2, 1 point ahead of Tamas Gal, who took his first win in WOR last time out in Brazil. And then we have Julian Klaffenbach 4th ahead of his teammate Reece Linton in P5. Jarno Opmeer P6 ahead of Ruben Pedreño, both on the same amount of points, 20 apiece. And then we have Jan Halliday, Cameron Dowd and Lucas Blakely reigning off the top 10. What would you say so far, Joseph, is your surprises when you look at those stand-ins?
I didn't quite think Nicholas Longay would be that quick, if I'm honest with you. But the fact that he's up there is very, very impressive. And, to be fair, with these standings, it's not blank state as per, but I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of these drivers to just really throw themselves up. It's pretty much blank at this point, with such small gaps in between second and even all the way down to the likes of Duncan Hofland in 18th place with just the 10 points. So it's really anyone's game. It
certainly is, as we head our way back over to the commentary camp. And of course, not long to go before we can make our way back into the race. Of course, we have got 16 drivers in the session, so not that long until we can get started. But of course, the race here should be quite interesting. As we know, undercuts and overcuts can work here. And of course, last time out, I think it was season 18, yes, we did see Otis Lawrence take the win. He was the favourite in that one. Then Jarno Opmeer finished second ahead of Brendan Lee, who finished in 3rd. And I think that just shows how good of a result it was for Otis and Jarno, because Brendan was insane last season. He took the championship, won it with like 3 rounds to go. He was on a charge. So to have both Otis and Jarno finishing ahead of him in that race shows that they have some good pace around this circuit. And then, of course, if you go back to season 16, we saw Tom Manley take the win there, as he's not made an appearance yet this season. But Otis Lawrence, once again, back on the podium. So he has got some good results around this circuit. And I'm sure when he had that incident with Ismail Fassi the season before, he was also in the top 3 there. So this could be a really good evening for Otis if he can play his cards right in the race, as we have got 19 drivers in. And a quick reminder, we are back into the normal cars now for the race. So we did see our very interesting liveries, but no more. We're back to the F1 cars. And see, I don't understand it personally, Joseph, and I presume you don't either, because we're both not quick enough to race. But they said the cars were unequal, which I'm not saying they aren't. I'm going to go for their word. So we have the multiplayer cars in qualifying, but then we go into the main race and we go back to the cars which are unequal. I don't understand that personally.
I'll have you know, I let the other drivers have a go. I give them the opportunity because I could absolutely destroy them. But no, I mean it's such minuscule margins. I mean, you saw a number of drivers, for example, when Joni Tormola set that lap that was identical to the pole time that was set by Freddie Rasmussen at that point in the session. It's just it's such fine margins that anything, literally anything, could change it, and especially in those qualifying sessions. So I'm not surprised they decided to have a go, but it's certainly interesting, the fact that it is going to have those minuscule gains, because of course it shouldn't. They're supposed to be equal cars, but that's not the point. I won't get into that point. And these drivers are just they would have complained regardless, and it does remove the opportunity for an excuse, because I know that they very much like to blame other things on their performances, but of course it removes for them the opportunity to do that. And it just means that they can go flat out pretty much.
Indeed. So we have got everybody in, which means it's now down to Jan Halliday to sort out the grid. I think he has got the grid. Yes, he has. So it means he can sort everything out. There we go. And then we'll be heading into the race shortly. Of course, should be interesting. Lap 1 will be very chaotic, I believe, down towards turn 1. And then after that, things tend to calm down quite quickly. The battling, really, really slows down, because drivers are just focused on getting to the end of that first stint on their tyres. And then, of course, they boom, new tyre, whether it's hard or mediums. Then they push a little bit more to the end, because that's when those positions actually matter. If you're starting like 5th and you work up to 3rd in the race, unless something drastic happens, it doesn't matter that much compared to if you was, not 3rd and you was 5th by the time you pitted. That's when it matters, when you pit, because that's when the positions actually matter. So, first 10, 15 laps, probably quite dull. But then after that, that's when all hell breaks loose. And I know I didn't make sense of what I said, but I know in my head, I know what I meant.
I mean, it is very much about those last few laps, and obviously, the regular tier I do is console tier 1 happens all the time. Last 2 races, there's been, I'm not going to say there's been nothing, but there's been very limited action, and then last 3 laps at Silverstone were absolute carnage, because they all just got to the end and went, oh, hang on, we should probably make some overtakes here, and they set themselves up for those last few laps. So those drivers just they'll manage themselves very well throughout the race, and it will all be about those last few laps. Can they take the opportunities?
Yeah, certainly. And we have got people readying up, so I think we are not that far away from getting underway for the Qatar Grand Prix. And a quick reminder before we go in of last week's results, if you are joining us new here. Of course, it was Tamas Gav that took the win ahead of Reese Linton, and Ismail Fassi rounding off the podium. A really good race from him to finish just ahead of Shanika Clay, who, had a really good result, has had a couple of good races this season, hence why he's P2 in the standings, believe it or not. And then, of course, Ruben Pedreño running off the top 5. A really good result from the Williams driver, who's definitely struggled in the past couple of races. Great to see him scoring some decent points. And I think, oh no, Xander's not picked his car. I hope that doesn't cause an issue. Oh, please don't. I don't want more issues heading into the race, but I think we should be fine now. We've got through quali with the disconnections. We should make it into the race quite comfortably.
Yeah, hopefully so. And, we'll get the opportunity to go very soon, I'm hoping, if we can get Xander in that car. We're not going to have the AI of Lando Norris. There we go. And we've started the countdown. We will get underway. Xander Van Dijken still not in a car, according to my screen, but I'm hoping that he'll do that soon. He's got 18 seconds.
Certainly, as we are now Got to make our way in. We're going to drag ourselves back to the race screen before we get involved. I mean, I could switch around and go back to the comms cam, but then it means I need to do more stuff to get back onto the race screen. So we'll do things premature. We'll do it early, and then, of course, yes, we don't have to worry about swapping all the screens last second. Right, here we go. This could be the best race we've seen in a long time, or, Joseph, it could be the worst race, and we can't wait to go offline and go to bed. That's the two options here. And I'm hoping it's going to be option one, and that we can actually get a really good race, which I'm sure we will do. I mean, it's our first race back with attendance of over 8 full-time drivers. Surely that means something good's going to happen, I hope.
Well, fingers crossed, and, well, pretty much everything crossed. Last time we commentated together, Monaco. So, I mean, that doesn't bode well, but maybe we were saving up all the action for PC Tier 1. We'll see. I'm interested to see what the strategies will be. I'm interested to see how many drivers will go for those hards. Like I said, I'm interested to see how many will go for the traditional medium hards, as you'll see on most circuits. But, I mean, it will certainly be interesting. All 20 drivers, I think, will take slightly different approaches, which could have dramatic effects.
Yeah, certainly. And, Joseph, I'm going to give you the honour of taking the start. Your first race in Tier 1, and I'm throwing you straight into the deep end. But you do enough good karting comms, so I can trust you on this one, hopefully. I don't have to sack you after one race.
Well, I mean, you won't be too far off, I'm sure. But, I mean, we'll wait and see. Of course, these drivers will be flying down to turn 1 at various different speeds. The majority of them will be... We'll be getting off the line well. You might see a couple who are not necessarily so quick, potentially on the hard compound tyres, potentially on the mediums. But, yeah, I mean, this first corner is going to be medium speed. That can always be a little bit dangerous because everyone just tries to fly into it. Sometimes they treat it as if it's a time trial lap and they go for, you know, the way they take the corner in a time trial lap. Sometimes they'll take it the way that they take it in a race session, which is the way you should do. You've got to be very tentative in the first corner on a racetrack, and I'm sure all of these drivers will be balancing that perfectly. That's why they're in PC Tier 1, and that is why they are at the peak of the sport. We've got almost 400 of you in the chat ready to watch Tier 1 get underway, and the lights are coming on now. There's 3, 4, 5. The lights are on. And the action's underway, an incredibly long wait, but we were able to get going. Freddie Rasmussen gets a good launch off the line, so does Josh Adowu. Otis Lawrence moves across to cover off Adowu and Otmir into turn 1, but Otmir makes the dive anyway, and he just about squeezes through alongside. He's able to get through on the exit, but is he able to confirm the position? Turn number 2 then for Otis Lawrence is not going to be as good as turn 1 was for Otmir, and so the Red Bull finds his way through, and it's the Red Bull 1-2, Alpine 3, 4, and it's not the greatest start for the team from France. Looking further back, and there is Scraps Tamash Gal trying to get through on Jan Halliday, who goes incredibly wide. It's almost 4 wide into the next braking zone, and Tico Hardy, through all of that, is able to take the position. P13 was what was being contested. P12 is where Tico is taken, but the first couple of corners was a huge skirmish, and it's the 2 Red Bulls that have come out on top.
Certainly, and that was the type of start Jana Watme would have been hoping for there. Oh, as we have 2 cars off at the exit of turn 8, Philip Presnader and Riccardo Benzoni, and Philip has decided to leave the session. Oh, dear me, I wonder if there was any little bit of hostility there between those two. But both of them fall to the back of the field. Ismail Fassi making a move ahead of Joni Tourmalat, but I think it was more of a defence to Joni Tourmalat. As, of course, further at the front, that was the absolute perfect start for Jana Watme. Chose those medium tyres in the event of getting past the 2 Alpines ASAP, and then, of course, just being able to work with his teammate, Freddie Rasmussen, to the end of this first stint, as, of course, we do cross the line. As the brake marker boards have been broken on... Well, no, are they brake marker boards? Because they're on the exit of the corner. Are they just like sponsor boards, I think? I don't know.
Very potentially. The sponsors won't be very happy about that one, but either way, I mean, Red Bull, great start for them. Freddie Rasmussen on the hard was able to control the pace. I wouldn't be surprised if Jana Watme let through in the next couple of laps or so, just to make the most of those medium compound tyres and try and extend the gap. I think we might be seeing Freddie Rasmussen try and defend here a little bit from Lawrence and Ido. But yeah, we'll see throughout the race as this one progresses. A little bit of scrapping further down the field. Jake Benham and Thomas Ronhar making their way through on Tamash Gal, and there was a few sparks. Tiny little bit of contact between Ronhar and Gal, but he was able to get it through. And he's on the inside now with Benham. Little bit of contact, big wiggle from the Kit Sauber, and he drops down out of the pace from Benham. And well, that was a tight squeeze given by the Brit.
That was a send and a half, I think, from Thomas Ronhart, and I think Jake was more than entitled to defend that. I couldn't see the best view of it, though, I'll be honest, because of the timing board on the left. But no, that was close to nearly ending Ronhart's race, but luckily he does make it through unscathed in 15th spot. We'll be looking to try and get past Jake Benham once again. I am pretty sure of that as we head back down to the final corner to begin lap 3 of 29. It is Freddie Rasmussen that leads ahead of Jarno Opmeer. Third place is going to be Otis Lawrence ahead of his teammate Josh Ido in 4th place as Tamas Gal already into the pit lane. Now, does he have damage? Oh, he's out. I think that says yes, unfortunately, for Tamas Gal, who decides to retire at the end of lap 2. Big shame there for the, well, tonight the RB driver, but of course normally part of the R8G team. Big shame after taking a win only 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, of course, last time's winner is already out of the session. It'll be the second driver, if you're not including Philip, who, of course, is struggling to get back into the session. I don't know if he's already given up, but these 18 drivers left in the race are still in the chasing pack. And they're trying to take the opportunity to fight up. Young Formula and Tico Hardy are going to be the two that I feel are going to be a bit more aggressive than anybody else. They're going to try and make the most of those medium compounder tyres. There's not much of a difference in terms of stint size between the two. Of course, those mediums are going to be lasting maybe 13 laps or something like that in their prime window. The hards are going to be lasting 16. So it's a 3-lap split, and at the moment I think it's going to be a little bit equal, but I think those mediums are going to be just that little bit better at this point in the stint. It'll be about lap 6, lap 7. That's been the tradition on this game where they start to fall off. And the hards, they've got a little bit more. They've got until 11, 12, something like that laps until they start to feel the effects of wear. So we're on to lap 4 at the moment. So we're about halfway through that medium stint, I'd say.
Indeed, and I think the issue is, though, with those medium tyres, because of how difficult it is to make a move, I think it makes it difficult even on these tyres because, you know, there is, of course, a gap between the mediums and hards in pace, but it just doesn't seem enough for anybody to make moves. I mean, Jarno Opmeer got a really good start, and that was what he was hoping to get out of those mediums. Whereas Johnny and Tycho haven't really moved anywhere at all, I don't think. I think Tycho did move up a spot, but that's because Jan Halliday got sent into Narnia off at turn 5. So, yeah, those mediums not working as much as I thought they would do as we continue our way on down towards turn number 6. And, of course, Angelo D'Ortenzio in P10 had a great start for the Ferrari team. We'll see what he can manage to muster up over this race. And, of course, the likes of Angelo and Jan, you know, they'll be racing here, and they'll be racing harder than most because they want to prove that they're, you know, if they can race here in T1 and score points, there's no reason why they can't race in esports or they can't race over in, you know, PSGL and other competitive leagues. So they will be here to prove they have got the pace. So expect these guys to fight more than others, and I think Julian Klaffenbach can be included in that conversation as well.
Absolutely. I think the only thing that's stopping Angelo D'Ortenzio from really competing in esports and Tier 1, anything like that, is the number and the year on his passport. So he's a very strong driver, and a driver I can see a lot of potential in to be a future F1 esports world champion. I thought he was unlucky to be overlooked for a full-time Tier 1 seat this year, but of course those drivers with contracts will be prioritised. But yeah, as you say, he's going to try and advertise himself the best he can here today, and he's currently in the points, which is not a bad start for him. Jan Halliday not too far off P13 as it stands, and well, looking like he might be the quicker one out of himself and Tico Hardy as it stands. Of course, Tico is on those mediums, so the fact that Jan's even able to keep up, let alone start to gain in on him, is a very good sign of things to come from the Aston Martin.
Indeed, and I have been told that you were a bit too quiet, so I have turned you up a notch. So I'm hoping that makes it a little bit better for you to be heard now as we continue our way on down towards turn number 9. There we go. That was a really weird camera angle then. I couldn't see where we were on track as we make our way through. And I've got to say, what a start from Fabrizio Donoso. Qualified really well. Currently sits P5. He could be on for a really good result tonight, and that is the type of result that he needs, of course. Departing from the Aston Martin team at the end of last season. I mean, I don't know if he's retiring from esports or if he's, you know, yet to find a seat. But if he is trying to find a seat, these results is the reason and the way he will get one for the upcoming season. I mean, he's been here, I think, the longest of anybody now. And Freddie Rasmussen, he was fighting for the championship back in 2017 with Brendan Lee. I mean, that's how long Donoso's been in the scene.
Few drivers waiting on contracts, waiting to see if F1 esports is going to be underway for 2025. or 2026 even, I think it would be.
Maybe 2027 at this rate.
Well, I mean, maybe never at this rate, but of course we'll see. F1 Esports is notoriously late at announcing things, but we'll see how that one progresses. And of course, I'd love to see another season of esports at least. I think all of these drivers deserve it. I don't think the game necessarily deserves it, but it is a step up on F1 24, in my opinion. And I think the drivers are enjoying this one a bit more than they did at the end of 24.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily in the greatest shape at the moment, but to see there's a few drivers who are returning to it now. That's a good sign, and well, hopefully the esports organisers have a look at that and maybe go, well, maybe it is worth putting it on for another year.
I mean, I think we need F1 2020 back, or maybe F1 23. Those two were really good games, and it really helped promote esports. It helped even promote F1 to some point as well, because a lot more people who just watched the esports side of things actually thought, you know what, if these cars can race well, let's go to F1. But unfortunately, they get a poor surprise when they realise that F1 cars can't actually race in real life. As, oh, you've disconnected. Are you still with us, Joseph? Oh, he's gone.
I am. I think I had a little bit of a lag, but I'll try and get in as soon as I can.
Or not? You back?
Yellow?
There we are. Dear me.
I think I am.
Yeah, your internet cut out, I think, because you've been disconnected and you started to jutter around. But I hope you're back. I'll try and get you back into the session.
I'll get in as soon as I can.
Sorry, guys, I'm going to have to quickly pause the game so I can try and invite him back in, of course. You know, these brilliant EA games. You can't just join back simply. No, you have to do a whole, trip to the Amazon rainforest and back in order to get somebody back in. But back to the race in action. So at the front, it's still the two Red Bulls. Fredrik Rasmussen and Jarno Watme that lead the way. Otis Lawrence and Josh Udo in third for the Alpine team. Of course, that's the type of result that Alpine need, and it will be good for them to post on their social medias, because I have noticed they've started posting so much on social media recently. So I'm sure, a 3-4 or a 1-2 would be perfect for their social media manager. And then, of course, those on the medium tyres, an update on those. So Jarno Watme made 2 places at the start. Joni stayed 7th. Tycho, I think, stayed in 12th. So they haven't made any work when he moves on this tyre. So my concern for those, or at least for Joni and Tycho, is that once we go to the medium tyres for those on the hards, what are Joni and Tycho going to be able to do on the hard tyres? I mean, surely they're just going to get ambushed at some point.
I mean, at this point, the hards are actually looking at much more decent tyre than the mediums, weirdly enough. Yep. I mean, you can see Jan closing in on Tico, and you've got Duncan who's closing in, I think, on Joni Tormala just a little bit. But it does feel as though the hards are a little bit better, and that's why Freddie Rasmussen has been able to hold on to that position ahead of Jarno Watme. They haven't really had any sort of moves, any sort of swaps like I thought they would. But yeah, I mean, the mediums aren't looking in great shape at the moment in comparison to what you'd think they would be. The hards are looking the better race tyre, so I think maybe at this point in the stint for those mediums, it's just about waiting to the end, not losing too much and then switching to the hards.
Indeed, and looking in the chat, Nico seems to be really enjoying his race ban. He's very sad to miss this, and something tells me that is a little bit of sarcasm, because yes, I mean, there's not actual racing going on here. It's more just driving the car and just sticking to the back of the car ahead. And then, of course, on the straights, moving out of the way so you can cool your engine back down so they don't overheat. But no, I hope it gets better as the race goes along. And, of course, once you have the pit stops, we have strategy. And that's what will make things quite interesting. But no, Red Bull controlling the race at the front quite comfortably with Freddie and Jarno. And then, of course, I've got to say, Otis is starting to close in, so maybe the hard tyres are starting to get a little bit stronger now compared to the medium tyres as we head through the final corner, back down towards turn number 1. And Otis only a couple tenths back from Jarno. Give it a lap or two. Possibly we could see him looking to make some moves and potentially posing a threat to Freddie Rasmussen. I mean, as I said earlier on, Otis is, well, very good at this circuit, I think it's safe to say. P1 and P3. And then we ignore the DNF. Yeah, apart from that, really, really good Otis around this circuit. So, I expect a podium from him tonight.
Yeah, and he's on the podium as it stands. He's 3rd place, and it would be another very, very good, a very, very good one. Freddie Rasmussen has just destroyed another sponsor board down towards turn number 1. So I think the sponsors won't be very happy about this evening of racing. Of course, one of them knocked down in the first lap, one of them knocked down in the 9th lap, and potentially one of the most exciting things that's happened outside of lap 1. But Freddie and Jarno at the moment are controlling the pace in those Red Bulls to Alpine's 3rd and 4th. And I think Otis's pace would have helped Josh Udo, because I think it would have just been the case that Otis's preparation from previous races would have brought himself over, and he would have been able to not carry Josh through the preparation, but he would have certainly been able to give him a good head start.
Yeah, certainly. I think it has definitely helped Josh having his teammate ahead, because he hasn't got to worry about what the car ahead is going to do. I mean, if Otis chooses, right, I'm going to do this or that, he's going to get told. Josh is going to know everything that's going on with Otis, same as Otis is going to know everything that's going to happen with Josh behind. So it is really crucial to have your two teammates together, because you can work out things together when it goes to strategy as well. You can think, actually, you know what, even though I'm the car behind, let me pick first. I want to go for the undercut, and all the stuff like that. So many different conversations can be had when you're together as a team. Of course, the same can go for Red Bull being P1 and P2. And with Freddie and Jarno, of course, it doesn't matter as much for those guys, though, being as they are on a different strategy. But we are on lap 10 of 29. The question is, when is Jarno going to pit? I mean, I know you're an engineer, as I've said before. I'm going to keep milking that for you, Joseph. But what would you be doing there? Your driver's P2 in the train. You're on the medium tyres. When do you pit for hards?
We're not going to mention your 2-week stint at Azuri then, are we?
I was a manager, actually. I'll have you know. I was a manager and an engineer, but I wasn't very good at that. But I did get a driver from 13th to 7th, so, I'll have that one in my back pocket.
I mean, I've taken a victory, so I've done a bit better than that. But, I mean, it's well, shout out. A very, very good start to the race for the Red Bull team at the moment. I think even though the mediums might have been the wrong tyre to go onto, I think they're in a great place to switch over. I think Jan might go for an undercut here. I think he might come in 11, 12, something like that. So we could be seeing him in the next couple of laps, and then he's going to get the jump on the likes of Tormola, the likes of Hardy. So he doesn't get held up with them. He's going to be, he's not going to be necessarily close behind Benzoni. And I think by the time he catches up to the back of the train, he's going to be in a very good position with very warm tyres. So it's a great chance for him to do something, as there's potentially a move into the first corner. Donoso defending Fassi. Yeah, there was. Ismail Fassi looking to get on the charge here. A little bit of racing actually happening on circuit here around Qatar, as Ismail Fassi looking to get ahead of Fabrizio Donoso. That's a battle for 5th place. And, well, guess what, guys? No move happened. What a surprise that is. Ismail Fassi slots back into P6, and Donoso still sticks into the top 5 as we make our way down towards turn 6. But that is telling me drivers are now really thinking about their track position. They're looking to make some moves, because at the same time Donoso is all over the back of Josh Ido as well. So drivers are starting to be a little bit more conscious now about where they are on circuit in terms of position. So we could maybe have a couple of interesting laps coming up. Either that, or I'm just trying to create a little bit of atmosphere for something to happen, even though it probably will not. But yes, we continue our way on through and towards turn number 12, 13 and 14, the triple right-handers, where you require no effort in the car whatsoever. And then, surprisingly, Joni Tormola has actually started to catch up to the train, considering his tyres are meant to be worse than those on the hards. So, are people purposely going slow to save tyres here, potentially? Potentially. Maybe Yoni's starting to push, maybe he's starting to use a bit of ERS just to try and keep up at this point in the stint, because those mediums are going to start to really fall off over the next few laps, as Duncan Hofland and Julian Klaffenbach pulling a little bit out of the train, Julian Klaffenbach especially, to try and get those extra kilometres of an hour down at the straights. I think it quite literally gives you 5 kilometres worth of difference, but it all counts at the end of the day. And well, the more you cook your engine, the slower it's going to make you. So of course, it's all about management at this point, and you can see a few drivers. It gets me a little bit excited. It makes me think they're going to go for an overtake, and then suddenly, no chance. They are pulling back in, and they are in a great position. Yep. They've all managed themselves well in this early stint, though. They've all surely got full tanks of ERS. I've seen a couple of them flashing. So this is, as you mentioned before the start of the race, they were all going to manage at this point in the race, and then it's going to be later on where they really start to push. The second stints may be coming up, as I think Jarno, Joni and Tico will be coming in, maybe not this lap, maybe next lap, something along those lines. Yeah, it's probably in the next couple of laps for Jarno, Joni and Tycho, and then of course all those on the hards, probably around lap 17, maybe lap 18. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure we'll find out in around 10 laps time. As once again, Fassi was really close to the back of Fabrizio Donoso, but had to back out a little bit there. So I'm not sure if he was potentially being a little bit harmed by that engine overheating. Of course, once you ride close to a car ahead, on this game, your engine can overheat and it can lose you a lot of power. We saw that in many races where people have actually had to stop going for moves and battles because their engine physically can't keep up with it. As we have got Joni Tormola into the pit lane now. He'll drop down to 18th place.
Of course, Phillips retired, well, technically retired card, he just left the session. That will stay down in 19th. So 18th here for Joni Tormela, but of course he went out of sync to 90% of the drivers, so I'm sure he'll work his way back up shortly. But oh, look at this here. Jarno Opmeer's tyres are certainly dropping off because he has actually lost DRS to his teammate. Now, either he's not got no pace, or possibly Jarno's doing that on purpose to give Freddie a bit of a gap here.
That's what I was going to say. I think he is giving him a bit of a gap so that I think Jarno's going to come into the pits at the end of this lap. I think he would have been watching Joni and seeing when he came in because he doesn't want to get held up behind the Mercedes. There is going to be a big gain by undercutting anybody on the same strategy as you. And, well, Joni Tormela came in. I think Jarno's going to copy him, and I think Tico might go for the same thing in that Williams. So we could be seeing all three of those medium runners off and every single driver on a set of those hard compound tyres. Jarno is really slowing down here, so it's very much defending. And Otis Lawrence will be frustrated on the back of him that he can't overtake. But that's just the state of this game at this point. But also, it's the way that the circuit compounds. Is Jarno going to pull into the pits at the end of this lap? Of course he is. He's going to make a switch as Freddie sets the fastest lap of the race. And, well, he's really stretched his advantage. Yeah,
2.1 seconds now between Freddie and Otis. And that is really going to harm Otis's race now because he was in DRS. He would have kept DRS if Jarno continued on at normal pace. But, of course, Jarno there playing the team game, helping his teammates reach a nice gap to the two Alpines behind. But then again, Otis will be annoyed, but I suppose in the back of his mind, he knows that he did the same for Josh, or Josh would do the same for him. So it is just team games, and when you're in the team's championship, you will try and help your teammates as much as you possibly can. Jarno did nothing bad; he just slowed down and helped that gap to his teammate. As we continue on, I was just on board with Angelo D'Ortenzio, currently down in P8 on those hard tyres, doing a really good job on the back of Julian Klaffenbach. Of course, has taken a podium this season. I think it was back in Austria, if I remember correctly. I might have got it wrong, but I'm sure he's taken a podium at some point, and of course has really lit upon this game. Of course, a bit of a backstory of Julian. Unfortunately, many people accused him of being a cheater on 2022. Got liberated from all the leagues that he was in, unfortunately. Went over to, I think, a bit of iRacing, then came back to F1 back on the 23 game, the end of 23, and actually said, you know what? I wasn't cheating, I've got the pace. Got into R8G as a driver. And look at him now, he's absolutely flying, and I couldn't be more happier for Julian. There's been many drivers, Thomas Ronhara as well, have been accused of cheating. And they've just hit back at everybody and said, no, I'm not. And have gone even faster than they were when they were accused. So that just shows sometimes being fueled with hatred helps you a lot when it comes to actually your mentality, your pace, your IQ in the race. And Julian, he's really now eyeing himself up for a main seat, I think, next season.
Yeah, playing the evil character does get you places sometimes, and I think, Kick Sauber clearly have taken a liking to those who are not necessarily liked by the community. Klaffenbach and Ronhar both running for them this evening, and Klaffenbach doing better than Ronhar. Of course, Ronhar did start from the back, but Julian Klaffenbach has gained 2 positions off of the start line, and he finds himself in that 7th place as he continues to try and close the gap on Duncan Hoffland up ahead, and maybe tries to get past drivers on strategy. This is where they're going to start to think about pitting. Otis Lawrence set the fastest lap on the previous one, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jarno Opmeer, Joni Tormela or Tico Hardy at the top of the sheets by the end of this lap. But, it feels like at this point, it's just they're going to start to think about when they come into the pits, because how strong is that undercut? It's so incredibly strong as Fabrizio Donoso comes and gets the first 3-second time penalty of the race. The definition of that undercut has been demonstrated by Joni Tormela. He was significantly down on where Jarno Opmeer was at the start of this race, and even when they came into the pits, he came in 1 lap earlier. He's in DRS.
Indeed, what a shame there for Fabrizio Donoso. Jack West heads into the pits and retires from the race. A big shame there for the Haas driver this evening, but big shame for Fabrizio Donoso. Of course, was looking really strong in this race so far. Has unfortunately taken a penalty, and of course, along with that, has unfortunately going to drop down to probably outside of the points. I think here. I don't think he's got any chance of a top 10 with a 3-second penalty. So a big shame there for the V-Carb driver this evening. But either way, he will continue on because you never know what's going to happen in the world of WOR as we continue our way through in towards turn 8 and 9 once again with the leaders. Of course, Rasmussen leads ahead of Lawrence and Ido in 3rd place. And of course, give it a lap or two, we should see these cars now starting to think about their pit stops. Of course, Jarno Opmeer is on a 2-lap undercut at least. Yanni is on at least a 3-lap undercut, so I'm sure they are probably going to find themselves ahead of the leaders. But the question is, how long can they hold up against the leaders, because they'll be on to a set of the mediums.
I wonder if there was any contact between Jack West and Riccardo Benzoni, because the
I was thinking
Mercedes
so, yeah.
And, well, I mean, Jack's out of the race. There's no damage on Riccardo Benzoni's car, but maybe there was on Jack's, as we are going to get the first couple of pit stops. Ismail Fassi, Duncan Hoffland and Joris Krozen are the first ones to pull the trigger. Jake Benham dives in as well. And, well, a quick bit of information from Nicolas Longuet. Fabrizio Donoso did not know he was on his third warning because the game didn't tell him. So it's very unfortunate there for the V-Cub. But, I mean, that's just... It's going to be disappointing. You have no idea. And suddenly you see that pop up on the top of your screens. And what we've got on the top of our screens is the fastest lap being broken once again. 2 laps in a row now. Jarno Opmeer's got it. Joni Tomla's beaten it. So the Mercedes looking the quicker of the two at the moment. I know it's the DRS that's helping him, as there's another 3-second time penalty for Zander van Dijken.
Indeed, and the gap between Tourmalet and Fasci is 3.8 seconds. So the gap to Jarno is about 4.5 nearly. So that was really helped for Jarno. Pitting that, 3 laps earlier onto his set at the hards, it's really helped him. But of course, the question will be, how quickly can Ismail Fassi get those tyres lit up, those medium tyres, gets, setting some pace down and closing in on those two ahead. I'm sure it won't take him long. And once he does find that pace, he will be absolutely flying on the back of Joni Tourmalet and Jarno Opmeer. But of course, as we know, the saying that goes, closing in is one thing, but overtaking is another. And that's going to be really difficult. Even on this big tyre offset, you just can't overtake on this game. And I think that's why some drivers, maybe who are nearer the back of the field, have gone for an even bigger overcut, so they could just try and have an offset where it's just humanly impossible for anyone to defend it. I think that's their plan. Oh, Zander's got a penalty. 10 seconds for Zander van Dijken, and that means he will retire from the race.
I think he might have retired off the back of that 3-second with how quick everybody is in this. I think it's just he's decided that that's going to be it for him in this race. I'm watching those drivers who came in last lap fly past everybody who came in on this lap. Where is Ismail Fassi, the leader of that group, going to come out? He's going to be behind Otis Lawrence, but he's going to be ahead of everybody else. And he's going to be in the DRS of the Alpine ahead. So I think that's a very, very well-executed strategy if they can hold on to those mediums.
Indeed, and the gap there between Otis and Joni is 2.5. So Otis has made it work very well by getting out ahead of Ismail Fassi, but of course he's got to try and close in now on the back of Joni and Jarno. I presume that also means that Freddie and Josh will be in this lap. They're just going to go 1 lap longer on this tyre. And then, of course, we'll start to see whereabouts Freddie can come out. If he ends up getting a gap ahead of Jarno, the race is over for anybody else because Jarno will just not let anyone past. So this could be a really good night for Red Bull here to try and get a 1-2. Potentially Joni Tourmalet as well. He's gone for a different strategy. If this works, this could also be a night that is memorable for him in WOR as Freddie is in. Let's go on board with Freddie. Josh gets a 10-second penalty. Oh dear me, it could have been a 3-4 in the race, but it might even be no points for Josh Edu. What a shame. Too quick into the pit lane and takes a 10-second time penalty. What a shame for Josh Edu and Alpine.
Yeah, that's destroyed any hopes of a strong evening they had, and any hopes of fighting with the 2 Red Bulls, as Josh Chido picking up that 10-second time penalty. He's going to continue on, but he's going to be a little bit further down in terms of when he ends up in this race. And I wouldn't be surprised if it drops him all the way down to the back of the field. He's out in 7th place at the moment, behind Fassi and Hoffland, and there's the gap between himself and Hoffland as, Ismail Fassi manages to defend the position from Freddie Rasmussen, and the Ferrari takes provisional P2, but the Red Bull is looking very racy, and he does dive to the outside of the Ferrari heading into the next braking zone, but does not open up enough of an opportunity to get through. That is going to be for the next few braking zones as Rasmussen now tries to get his tyres up to temperature.
Indeed, and that has really helped Otis Lawrence, because he's now got a car between himself and Frederick Rasmussen. And actually, Ismail's lost the DRS. Now, if he can... Oh, no, he's back in. Never mind. I was going to say, if Otis can pull that gap even more, that could also be raced over in terms of the podium, but never mind. He's got himself back within the 1 second gap as they make their way through turns 12, 13 and 14. And, of course, Rasmussen, that is not the way he was hoping that one would have gone. He would have been hoping to probably get ahead of Otis Lawrence and jump up into 3rd, but no, 5th place for Freddie at the moment. Duncan in P6 as well. That's been a good recovery from him. Of course, is down P9 and 10 earlier on. Also went for that undercut onto the mediums and has got himself into a nice spot. So we continue on, lap 20 of 29, and it's Jarno Opmeer that leads ahead of Joni Tormela with Otis Lawrence in the top 3. That's Philip's car being overtaken. I think that's the lapped car, of Prejnader.
Yeah, this is an absolutely vital part of this race as to whether Fassi can defend from Rasmussen. And Otis Lawrence actually picked up DRS on the last lap on Prejnader, which allowed him to close in on Joni Tormela. So the Alpine is now right back into the thick of things, and Rasmussen will be willing Fassi on and hoping that he can close in, but Lawrence is pushing like mad to try and break free of that DRS on Fassi and hold up to Opmeer and Tormela, because he knows those mediums are better at this point in time. And with 9 laps to go in this race, the Alpine is in a prime position to take a very strong spot. That is, if he can get past the Mercedes and the former Mercedes of Tormela and Opmeer. And Ismail Fassi has found his way back into 8 tenths. It was Lawrence's turn to push on the last lap. It's Fassi's turn to push on this lap. And Freddie Rasmussen will just be watching and waiting.
Yeah, certainly. And this could be a really good race here for Jarno Opmeer, because I think even though Otis and Ishmael and those behind have got better tyres, it just seems like that DRS is just too OP and nobody can, seem to make any moves. So, potentially, this could be still a win for Jarno Opmeer, or at least a top 2 on the cards. And if Joni Tormela could hold on to a podium, that would be absolutely brilliant. I mean, once again, Joni's been here for years. I think he took part in the 2nd season of F1 Esports, but unfortunately he's never been able to get any greatness out of it. He's always been there scoring points. He's always been an experienced driver, but has never taken many podiums or many wins in the past. But tonight could certainly be his night, but he's got to defend off of the Alpine of Otis Lawrence as they make their way through to turns 4 and 5. And further back, I think it was Joris Krozen getting ahead of Fabrizio Donoso.
Yeah, it certainly was. And that's going to be a stint from Otis Lawrence, and he's going to spin Joni Tormela around.
Dear me.
And that is an interesting incident there. And Otis Lawrence having elapsed in concentration, and he takes out Joni Tormela as he tried to dive it to the inside line. Tormela did not spot him there, and Lawrence has made his way through, but Tormela's dropped outside of the points.
I mean, what's the point of me talking, man? I was saying, he's going to get a podium. Let's go, Joni. 5 seconds later, actually, you know what, Joni? Goodbye. Smash into turn 6. And no podium for Joni Tormela. But there is wing damage here for Otis Lawrence. This could be crucial in this race. Could this promote Ismail Fassi possibly with a chance to go for a victory? As we head into the final corner and then down towards turn 1, we've also got Freddie Rasmussen all over the rear of Ismail Fassi as well. This could be an interesting couple of laps because they're all going to start burning the battery in towards turn 1. Otis is going for the move. Otis Lawrence takes the lead on lap 22 of 29 ahead of Jarno Opmeer. Ismail Fassi back within a second of the Flying Dutchman with Rasmussen in 4th. He'll also be looking to make a move, and I think because of the fact that Otis has damage, he needed to get that move ahead of Jarno. As Freddie goes up the inside into turn 4, that was a scary move, and somehow both of them keep it on the road.
Yeah, Freddie trying to scare Ismail Fassi at this point in time. He's just a 2 tenths back, and he's going to try and open himself up on the exit once again. But I think the main overtaking spots are in that first sector, and Fassi just covering off Rasmussen, who's having a look through every single corner. Jarno Opmeer won't mind that Otis Lawrence is ahead of him simply because Lawrence is going to get a penalty, most likely, from that Tormela incident. So the Red Bull is going to stay just behind the Alpine, I think, at this point in time. And that's going to be very important in the way of this race because he's going to be able to pull the Red Bull along. And it's all about whether Rasmussen is able to get past Fassi. And that might be that 1-2 that Red Bull have been wanting. But within the space of 4 laps, Alpine's race went absolutely down. And, well, it's going to be an absolute horror show for them. In the end, Rasmussen is chasing Ismail Fassi down to the final corner as Fassi's teammate Hortenzio, 3-second time penalty. Out of the final corner then, Rasmussen tries to get the run. He's going to be right in under the rear wing of the Ferrari, and there's going to be bumps on the outside. Rasmussen pulls to the inside. Fassi tries to push him to as late as he can, but Rasmussen makes his way through anyway. Fassi tries to go for the switch back on the exit, but the exit from the Red Bull is just enough, and he stays in 3rd.
Indeed, and there we go. Freddie Rasmussen up into 2nd place. Now give it a lap or 2 as we do have Duncan Hoffman going for the send into turn 4. He's up the inside of Ismail Fassi. That allows Josh Ido to look for a move himself down towards turn number 6. To the outside goes Josh Ido. Can he try and get up another position? They're going to make contacts. There's going to be a bit of tie hook in between the two into turn 7. And will Josh Ido manage to get that move done? Up the inside goes Ido. He's going to get ahead of Duncan, but Duncan's going to keep his tyres in there as they head through turn 8 and on there, barging their way through into turn number 10. Who's going to emerge in P5? It will be Duncan Hoffland. And that was a very, very big battle itself. And Duncan comes out on top in P5 as they make their way through to turn number 12. And we continue on once again, but back up at the front. How long will it be before Jarno lets Freddie through? I mean, surely that's going to be the strategy here, because Jarno did kind of, make his race a bit of a detriment to himself because of holding up Otis before he pitted, and surely now it won't be long before he lets his teammate through to attack Otis Lawrence in the Alpine.
You'd think so, but maybe the two Red Bulls are banking on the Alpine getting a penalty as down the main straight once again. Julian Klappenbuck might be going for a move on Josh Edo. He looks to the inside, but just backs out at the last moment, tries to force a mistake out of the Alpine. But of course, Josh Edo, with that 10-second time penalty, that's really going to cost him towards the end of this race. And both of the Alpines are in very strong positions at the moment. But of course, we know that there might be impending penalties for the two. 24 of 29. This race is just lit up. And, throughout all of this, it's still Red Bull who are in prime position.
Yep, certainly. No matter what happens in this race, Red Bull somehow finds something as, that is not good at all for Thomas Ronhaar. Takes a 3-second time penalty, and that is certainly not going to give him any points this evening. Of course, he's already 2 seconds back from the top 10 itself, so no points on the board at all for Ronhaar this evening, and that is certainly going to cause a little bit of trouble for him, as Josh Edo as well takes another penalty. 3 seconds as well added to his name, so that puts him on 13 seconds of penalties in this race. That is really not good for the Alpine driver. Of course, his teammate still leads the way, but of course has got damage on that front wing, so give it time. Jarno will be on the attack, but I've noticed in towards the final corner, Freddie has really closed in on his teammate, so is this going to be the call to say, let Freddie through and let him go for the lead as we head down to turn 1? Is there going to be any moves into this first corner? They're closing in, but no, not enough to make a move. So Freddie still stuck in P3. Ishmael Fassi 9/10 down, so he nearly lost that DRS, and if he's not careful, he is going to lose DRS, and once that happens, that could be your race over in terms of looking to try and fight for a podium result. As we look further back, Ronhaar's closing in on Jake Benham, but I mean, it's a shame for him because no matter what he does, it doesn't matter because of his penalty. So what is your sort of motivation for continuing on here?
Well, I think it's just in the hope that maybe there's a potential swing. It's maybe he'll feel as though Yanni might have been blamed for that incident, and then maybe it could just be the case that Otis Lawrence does not get a penalty. But I think it was pretty cut and dry, and I think it might just be biased towards himself, as the two Red Bulls were able to eke out a gap of 9/10 of a second to Ishmael Fassi. That's now been broken down to 7/10 of a second, and at the moment it's looking very, very good for the two Red Bulls. But if they're not able to break free from the Ferrari, he might have a late race charge. Of course, Jarno Opmeer on those hard compound tyres, Freddie Rasmussen on those mediums. If Freddie is able to go through on Jarno, then Jarno could be liable to attack from the Ferrari. So it's all about breaking free from that DRS range, and they haven't done so for yet another lap, but they've gotten close for yet another lap. Ishmael Fassi, 9/10 back.
Right, back down towards turn 1 we go. Jarno Opmeer on the attack. Can't quite find a move ahead of Otis Lawrence, but with 3 laps to go, it won't be that long before he launches a move. And of course, with the damage, that's going to really hurt Otis's pace. I mean, if he didn't have damage, he probably wouldn't be under that much pressure. But with damage, he certainly is under pressure. Down in towards turn 4 and 5 we go. Of course, Jarno second, Freddie in third. Of course, Otis Lawrence leads the way. And then looking a little bit further down, of course, in terms of penalties, there could be a P9 on the cards here, or possibly P8 on the cards for Jan Halliday, P9 on the cards for Jake Benham as well. So even though they haven't got that ultra pace, they could still be in a position because of their racecraft and not taking any time penalties in this race. I know I've said that, Joseph. Both of them are going to take a penalty.
Of course, well, that's how it works, but they're going to hope that that's not the case. As, I think it's important that Jan pushes now to try and get back into the DRS of Angelo D'Ortenzio, because they could get swallowed up by the likes of Tico Hardy, Riccardo Benzoni towards the end of the race. And if Thomas Ronhaar also decides to fight them, then they could lose enough time for Donoso and for D'Ortenzio to hold on to those positions. Of course, Donoso has 6 seconds, so it's going to be harder. But Angelo D'Ortenzio, only 3-second penalty. Jan's only 1 second behind. Jake Benham is 1.7. So if they do fight, if they lose 1.3, then that's suddenly a position gain from Angelo D'Ortenzio.
Certainly.
And, as you continue on, they're just it's gonna eke out and it's gonna build up.
It will do as we head back down to turn 1. and it did get close there between the top three. 3.5 tenths separated Otis, Jano and Freddie there heading down to turn number 1. So that could have been, you know, a perfect opportunity for both Red Bulls to strike on the Alpine. Of course, with no help for Otis, he's kind of stuck there fighting on his own. It's, you know, it's a handicap match. It's a 1v2 here for Otis Lawrence, so he's certainly going to have to think of something on these next couple of laps as we head down towards turn number 6. Of course, Ismail Fassi, I think he knows he probably hasn't got the pace of those guys ahead because of his tyres being older than Freddie's and Otis's, but he can sit here and just wait for something to happen. If contact happens, if maybe the whole thing with Red Bull doesn't work and they lose time, that could be Ismail's time to pounce. So he's just going to sit there in that DRS and wait for something to happen as we, of course, have 2 laps to go. Otis leads ahead of Jano, ahead of Freddie. Let's see what happens this time around, because there could be a possible move on the cards here.
I think the only way that Otis Lawrence is going to get anything out of this race is if he holds up Jano Opmeer and Freddie Rasmussen through the next few corners, tries to allow them to get swallowed up by Ismail Fassi, and then tries to break away. But for the Alpine, that's going to be incredibly difficult to manage. But I think he's certainly going to try and do that. Jano Opmeer 3 tenths back as they head out of the final corner, and Opmeer gets a good run. He's going to open up that DRS. Lawrence defends to the inside. Opmeer is going to follow him, and Freddie Rasmussen is going to be on that top line, but they are going to continue through. Lawrence moving across to defend once again. Jano Opmeer goes through anyway, and is he going to take the position and move up to the lead of this race? He is, and he pushes Otis just about wide enough so that Freddie can come through as well.
What a move that was there by Jano Opmeer. I mean, a little bit pushy into turn 1 there, but got ahead of Otis and allowed Freddie to go through into second place. Now, that is certainly going to cause a bit of controversy, but Jano Opmeer leads on lap 28 of 29. Further back, as Ismail Fassi for a moment was looking at making a move on the back of Otis Lawrence, and now Otis is going to struggle because behind him is Ismail Fassi, who hasn't got damage. He is on 1 lap older tyre, but that is certainly not going to make much of a difference here as we make our way through and towards turn 9 and 10. And what a move that was by Jano Opmeer. He needed to make that move. He needed to disrupt Otis's, you know, just rhythm and form, so he could put the Red Bulls up into the lead. Through in towards the final couple of corners we go, and Jano Opmeer is the leader of this race.
He certainly is, and this is a great position for him to be in. I think Freddie Rasmussen is just going to chase him through here for a 1-2-4 Red Bull. If he does decide to fight, though, this last lap could get incredibly spicy. The 2 Red Bulls have a 7-tenth gap back to Otis Lawrence, who's going to be more concerned about Ismail Fassi and that final podium spot. Duncan Hoffland as well, waiting in there. He's not going to feel any pressure from Josh Ido, so it's going to be all down to this, all down to the final run towards the first corner. And Freddie Rasmussen is going to be let through by Jano Opmeer, I think, into that first corner, and this could be where the Red Bull decides to go through. All the chat was calling for no papaya rules. Well, Rasmussen's been let through, and he might go on to win this race. Ismail Fassi now just the 1/10, just going up to about 2 tenths out of turn 2, in behind Otis Lawrence, and it looks like the final podium spot is what's going to be the most contested over.
Certainly, as Duncan Hoffland is also closing in here in the Aston Martin. He could be looking to try and get ahead of Ismail Fassi and jump up into 4th place as they make their way through turn 6. Further back, we've got Julian Klaffenbach also on the charge of Josh Ido. Of course, he gets that position anyway because of the penalty for Josh, but still, this will be a really good result for Julian as well to try and, you know, jump back and stay in the top 10 of the championship as they make their way down towards turn 10 for the final time. But what a race this has been by Red Bull. Of course, Rasmussen, unbeatable in qualifying, and he's been unbeatable in this race. Red Bull took a risk with Jano Opmeer holding up Otis Lawrence to allow Freddie to have that lead, to have that gap, and it worked out. In the race, Jano had to go for a late send to get himself and to get his teammate ahead of the Alpine driver, but through into the final corner for the final time. It's a 1-2 for Red Bull. It's Frederick Rasmussen who wins ahead of Jano Opmeer in second place, and Otis Lawrence, despite damage and despite having to fight 2 Red Bulls, he still takes 3rd place in this race, with Duncan Hoffland jumping ahead of Ismail Fassi at the line to claim P4 for the Aston Martin team. And I've got to say, it wasn't a very good race, but the final couple of laps definitely sparked a little bit of controversy.
Well, that's what I mentioned at the start. It's all going to be about those last couple of laps, and that's exactly what it was. As well, we got, in the end, a Red Bull 1-2 on track. They didn't wait behind Otis Lawrence. They decided to go through, and it worked out for them. Freddie Rasmussen taking a pole to victory but it certainly wasn't like that on the circuit, even though it was like that on paper. It's going to be a Jarno Opmeer who comes alongside him, and Otis Lawrence, who rounds out the podium for now. But of course, those incidents that he may well have had might find him off of the podium by at the end. Third place, or fourth place even, for Duncan Hofland, ahead of Ismail Fassi, who span his way up to the line. Julian Klaffenbach and Joris Krozen 6th and 7th. And then Jan Halliday and Angelo D'Ortenzio, two Tier 2 drivers who, well, stake their claim for Tier 1 seats here tonight with double points, or points finishes for the both of them. Tico Hardy then rounds out the top 10. And then you've got Benzoni, Ronhard, Donoso, Idowu with his 10-second time penalty. Donoso, of course, with his 9th. And Jake Benham and Philip Plesneder rounding out the field. Philip disconnecting early on, and so he should be classed as a DNF. Then Jonny Tormela, Xander Van Dyken, Jack West and Tamas Gal round out the DNFs and round out the 20-car field.
Indeed. So there we have it. We'll try and get an interview with our top 3, if possible. I'll quickly put a message into the chat to get Freddie, Jarno, or Otis Lawrence in for a quick interview. But there we go. I mean, it was as good of a race as you can get on F125. Of course, it has been a really poor game, unfortunately. The racing isn't the best, never has been on this game, but tonight we actually got a little bit of racing between our guys up at the top, and hopefully we can have a bit of a chat to them as well to see what they thought of this current game, and of course the race that we've just had, of course, with Nicolas Longuet being, I think, 50 points ahead. He'll still hold the lead of the championship. Julian Klaffenbach will jump up towards the top 3. I think Jarno will be up in towards P2 or 3 himself, and then of course Freddie Rasmussen will jump up the standings and get up into the top 5. So, you know, at least Nico's still got a 40-point gap heading into the next race. You know, despite having that race ban, of course, you know, having such a good points gap has really helped him to hold that championship gap up at the front. And no chat from anybody for an interview. Otis says no. Freddie never joins for an interview, unfortunately, and Jarno is always a little bit of a one-off. So I think that might be it here for this evening in terms of talking to our drivers. But Joseph, what a race that was. Of course, we've been away for a while due to attendance reasons, but we're back, and I think that was a nice way to open up the championship once more.
Certainly was. I mean, it was an open book for pretty much any one of the drivers on that field here today. And, well, it was a great chance for anybody to try and stake their claim for somewhere near the title. Jarno Opmeer, of course, with a better position than Freddie Rasmussen in those point standings. Jarno in 6th place, and he will now move up as a result of, for example, Tamas Gal retiring and Shanika Clay not showing up. So a couple of drivers who will be displaced, and Jarno will push up. He allowed Freddie Rasmussen through as well. That might be as they're thinking of the championship already, and he might be thinking that he might want his teammate to be fighting up there with him.
Indeed, but I think that is all for this evening. Of course, a big thanks to everybody for joining in this evening in the live chat. Of course, a big thanks to Next Level Racing and Gridfinder for sponsoring us this season. And of course, we're back next week, next Thursday. So that'll be the 29th of September, I believe, where, of course, we head off to Texas, if I believe. Qatar, of course. We are following on from the PSGL Tier 1 calendar, just so the drivers don't have to practice multiple tracks within a day of each other. Makes it a little bit easier for them, and also gives them a little bit more of motivation to race, as they don't have to learn a new track again because they don't like the game. Nobody does. But yeah, that is it. So we're back next week. Hopefully Danfield will be better and will be with us in the commentary box. If not, you might see Joseph, you might see somebody else. But of course, a big thanks to you as well, Joseph, for joining me in the commentary booth today. And we'll see you all next week, guys. So have a good evening, have a good weekend, and we'll see you for the next round in a week's time. Good night.